Hello. Today I'm going to share some tips about surviving heat waves in Rimworld. These have been my bane, especially if I try to play as a lost tribe. And I had some trouble finding tips on surviving. Took me a lot of trial and error and death before I figured things out, so thought I'd share some of what I've learned. So let's get down to it. You'll notice that this colony isn't currently suffering from a heat wave, but I'll still be able to show you everything that I have discovered. So in Rimworld, there are really three main ways of surviving a heat wave. And the first one is the most obvious, and it is air conditioning. But if you are playing as a lost tribe, especially early on when you haven't done much research, you probably won't have access to air conditioning. I'll go over it real quick anyway because it's very good on the crash landed scenario and other scenarios in general. But it's pretty easy. You get some power supplies like a solar generator or wind turbine. Then you hook it up to an air conditioning unit. And when you place the air conditioning unit, the blue side is the cold side, the red side is the hot side. And then you just manipulate the temperature to whatever you want. Maybe throw in a battery to keep it going long term and throughout times of low energy production, like at night for solar panels or just certain times for wind turbines. That will basically keep you going, and as essentially all there is to air conditioning. A few things to keep in mind is that just because your air conditioning system is keeping your base at the temperature that you want it outside of a heat wave, doesn't mean it will survive during a heat wave. The heat wave will stress your system, so you may need even more air conditioning units. So as you can see, I have 5 air conditioning units right here, and 3 of them are currently using low amounts of power. So if I only had like 2 or 3 and they were all high current power use, they probably wouldn't do well in a heat wave and they'd be overloaded. So my inside temperature would actually be hot and could still make my colonists or tribal members angry, if not give them heat stroke. So you want to build in some redundancy in your system, and just to be safe, put in some extra air conditioning units. And one more thing to note is that to keep a consistent temperature throughout everything, you're going to want to use vents. And basically what it will do is it will share the temperature between each room. I don't have them currently because heat waves haven't been too big of an issue yet. But if you're in a really hot area, it will become an issue. And as you can see, the outside temperature is actually 23 degrees Celsius, and the temperature in the bedrooms are basically the same. So you can get heat wave temperatures in here. So even if like your main hallway or whatever is air conditioned, you could still have dangerous temperatures in your room if you don't have vents in between them. But I have found a temporary fix you can do is select your doors, your inside ones, don't do this to the outside ones, and click the option hold open, and that will basically, when your colonists go through the door, they'll leave it open, and so it can vent temperature, I believe, pretty well. And that could save you if you don't have any vents. It's not perfect, but it's good. Okay, so that is all there is to AC. The next main way to fight heat waves is through clothing. And this is ideal as a lost tribe, where during your first spring, summer, or even fall, if a heat wave hits, basically you could be screwed. There could be nothing you can do. You could have all of your colonists fall to heat stroke. But you might be wondering, what do I mean by clothing? So there's two basic ways to use clothing to your advantage. One is you need to take off any clothing that decreases the maximum temperature that your colonists can withstand, like toques. During a heat stroke, do not have your colonists wear toques, because as you can see here, it makes the colonist able to withstand less heat. This is bad. This will encourage heat stroke, and things like jackets. I don't know if I have one laying around right now. Jackets will do that as well. But like tribal wear doesn't. It insulates against the cold, but it doesn't hurt you in terms of heat, so tribal wear is fine. T-shirts are fine. Pants are fine, I think. Yep. So it's easy to check that. Ooh, this person has a jacket. I can just check it real quick. It actually doesn't hurt. But parkas and things will hurt your heat ability to withstand heat. So definitely take those off. Don't let your colonists wear those during a heat wave. But there are two pieces of clothing that will actually help your colonists battle heat. And they are cowboy hats and dusters. So you're going to want all of your colonists to look like cowboys, basically. As you can see, it increases the amount of heat your colonists can withstand, and this is for the cowboy hat. And my man Gaston has a duster, so I can show you that it increases your heat tolerance as well. And the duster does it quite a bit more, so it's a little bit handier. But they're basically what you need to make this clothing is, if you're starting out as crash landed, you have the research done for it. Just build a tailoring bench, either electric or regular. The electric tailoring bench can run without electricity too, just slower. So don't worry about that. But you need the tailoring bench, and just make dusters and cowboy hats. But if you're starting as a lost tribe, you don't have the research yet. What you need to research is complex clothing, and then you can build a basic research bench, or not a research bench, a tailoring bench, sorry. And you can assign a colonist to work on clothing like the cowboy hat and the duster. And those can be very, very good to fight heat stroke, even if you have air conditioning, because the clothing will increase your heat tolerance outside, so you don't have to worry about colonists working outside and getting heat stroke. That is a big bonus, and starting at the Lost Tribe, I believe it only takes 1,000 research points, which is significant, but it is much easier than researching electricity, and it can get you going against the heat wave early on. And so there's really only one other way to fight heat waves, and it's not ideal at all. And it's restricting your colonists to certain areas. So one way you can do this is you can create just a new area. And we'll call this Heatwave Safe Zone. Dandy. So what you can do is then go to Zone and Area, expand Allowed Area, go to Heatwave Safe Zone, And so you can highlight the inside of your base. And then you could go to restrict and put all of your colonists there, and they won't be able to leave that area. I'm going to undo that for now. But that is an option if you don't have any safeguards against heatwave in an emergency. Indoor buildings can stay a little bit cooler during a heat wave, but it is by no means a surefire thing. It can still get to 50 degrees Celsius indoors easily under the right heat wave conditions, and that is enough to kill your colonists. So that is something to think about. Basically, that's a desperation move. I wouldn't rely on that at all, but it could help you in a pinch maybe to just hold on long enough for the heat wave to end. And another thing to think about is your characters themselves. Their traits can let them survive heat waves better or worse. Like Marley here is a cold lover, so as you can see, she can't withstand as high temperatures as other people. So this is someone that you might want to consider to keep inside. As you can see, because of her gear, she has a cowboy hat. Even with her cold lover trait, her maximum comfortable temperature is pretty decent. So I wouldn't be worried about her getting heat stroke because of her gear. But if she didn't have this hat and there was a heat stroke outside, I wouldn't let her outside. I'd try to keep her inside. But on the other hand, Gaston here, who, I don't know why he has a duster, when he is heat tolerant, you can see he is more comfortable in higher temperatures. So you can see here, he's a little bit more comfortable because he's wearing a toque, which kind of brings him down a little bit. But in general, he can withstand higher heat. So if you had to have somebody doing outside work, one thing you could do is you could restrict everybody indoors if you had to, and then find Gaston and say, you're heat tolerant, you can go outside and do whatever you want, and you can assign him to do everything you need outside. Like I said, that's not ideal. This last category of manipulating where your colonists can move is really a last-ditch effort to survive, really. Because as you can see, even a cold-tolerant character with just a cowboy hat can survive very high temperatures during a heat wave. It probably won't get this hot. And if it does, it won't stay that hot for very long, probably only the hottest part of the day. So as soon as it cools down a little bit, they'll start to recover. So yeah. That's about it to surviving heat waves. As a brief overview, you can use air conditioning if you have it researched, and that is wonderful for keeping your indoor temperatures cool. And that can be a good relief because it could be really hot outside and your characters could get heat stroke symptoms outside. But when they come back to a cool indoor environment, their heat wave status will slowly go away and they'll be back to normal. So you could just have AC and survive just fine usually if you have enough of it and power. But clothing, I think, is honestly the best bet for every scenario. It's easy to research if you're on crash landed. You can just plop down a bench, even with no electricity. This would work without it, just a little bit slower than normal. But you could plop it down, make a bill, and have someone get to work on cowboy hats and dusters. Dusters are better, but they require a lot more resources and time. Cowboy hats will usually keep you just fine except for the most cold tolerant of people and the worst of heat waves. But with cowboy hats and dusters, you can have people outside basically all the time, and unless they're special, like cold tolerant, you won't notice any bad effects. Yeah. So that is basically how you can survive heat waves in Rimworld. A couple different ways. That's all the ways that I currently know of and that are in the game as of, I think, 0.61. Hope this can help you survive.